I wrote a piece. We've got this website, wisdomschool.com, and sometimes I write about kind of esoteric things or thought things or relationships or whatever. But it's got a section in there, a tab on writing, and where I write about writing, because I've had some success as a writer. Got 30 some odd books in print in 17 languages all around the world, and I've written millions of words, and so it was like, how can you become a writer? What can you do? And I started talking about how I always wanted to be a writer, from the time I was a kid, and then in my 20s I stopped writing and didn't write until I picked it back up again in my 40s, my late 40s. When we moved to Vermont, we sold the ad agency in Atlanta on a 7-year buyout to our employees, and so I had an income, and we moved to Vermont, and I was going to become a full-time writer, and I wrote, a whole bunch of just terrible novels, and then I started writing political stuff, that was published in Common Dreams. This all started with the Bush administration, really. Well, actually, in '96, in the '90s, I had published stuff on ADHD and wrote a book on climate change, The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight. And, what I learned is that if you want to be a writer, you have to write. I tell the story about my friend Michael Kurland, who is a really brilliant science fiction writer. He's got a bunch of books out, makes a living at it. I mean, not a lot of people can make a living as a writer. And this one time I was in his apartment. This was back when he lived in New York City in the 80s. And he had this manuscript sitting on the counter ready to go off to the publisher. And it was like 300 or 400 pages. And I'm like, how do you do that? Because I'd always wanted to write a book at that point in time and never had, and thought, it's just, write a 300-page book, it's just too big a job to do, And he said, and I was expecting him to say something like, you eat granola, you do yogurt, you stand on your head for 10 minutes, and you chain yourself to your typewriter or something like that. And what he said was 5 pages a day. And I'm like, what? And he's like, 5 pages a day. I get up in the morning, I sit down at the typewriter, have my cup of coffee, and I write 5 pages, and then I start my day. And essentially, sometimes I start my day at 9 in the morning, and sometimes it's 3 in the afternoon, and I'm still working on those 5 pages. But I just do 5 pages. And I said, well, when you finish at 9 in the morning, why don't you do, another 5 pages or another 10 or 15 pages? And he said, because that's the road, that's the path that will lead you to burnout. You just do 5 pages a day. A 300-page manuscript, if you do 5 pages a day, means you write a book every 2 months. Which, when you think about it, is like pretty digestible. And then you take another month or two to edit the book. And I've been doing that basically ever since. I mean, I took his advice to heart. The other point he made is that writers write. If you want to call yourself a writer, you've got to write every day, or at least 6 days a week. You can take a day off, but you can't take a week off. And certainly since the 2000s, since the early 2000s, and particularly since I started this radio show, when every single day I have to write for the show, and those writings are now published over at Hartmann Report. I used to publish them on Common Dreams and other places. The other thing that I learned is, and another lesson that I'd like to share with you if you're interested in being a writer, is Arthur C. Clarke's comment that your first 1,000,000 words are practice. And you say, oh my God, 1,000,000 words, what is that? Well, it's not that much. I mean, it's a couple of years of writing every day. 5 pages is basically 2,000 words. If you produce 2,000 words a day, that's 600,000 words a year. And so, in 2 years you hit your 1,000,000 words. And what I found is that after my first 1,000,000 words, which was, a half a dozen really bad novels and a lot of writing. And I also, in the 80s, I used to write for Ziff Davis. I wrote a bunch of magazine articles and things, cover stories for Popular Science and Popular Computing and stuff like that. And you just get better and better. It's like being a violinist. Something that I tried once in my life. When I was in 7th grade, I took violin for 2 years. Or no, 5th and 6th grade. It was elementary school. I had 2 years of violin. And, what I learned from that is that, people can be talented, they can have skills, but the only thing that's going to turn you into a brilliant violinist is practice. And I just didn't have the patience for it. I didn't have the passion for it. I didn't want to always be a violinist when I grew up. I can play the fiddle a little bit, but it's pretty bad. It's worse than my novel writing. But I've become a pretty good nonfiction writer, and it's just from practice. It's that simple. So start writing if you want to be a writer when you grow up, I really hit my stride with my writing in my 50s and 60s. So, don't worry about how old you are. Even if it's just a journal every day, or if it's a long commentary over on Hartmann Report, in the comments section, we've got a really active community there, and there's a couple of people who write kind of long form pieces. And some of them are downright brilliant. I mean, it's good stuff. And, you can publish it. There's a bunch of different places you can publish your stuff. If it's political, you can publish it at opednews.com. My friend Rob Call runs that website. It's a great website. He publishes things from, unknown writers. You can publish on Substack. You can publish on medium.com. I mean, there's a lot of places. So I just wanted to, share that. And if you want to read the article, it's got a whole lot more detail in it. It's published over at wisdomschool.com. It's right up at the top of the page, and you can check it out. So that's it for me for this day, this first day of the brand new week. What's on your mind? I'll pick up your phone calls on the other side of this break. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, your media support group for we, the people of the United States and the world and all life on Earth. I'll be right back with you.